My name is Matthew Iavani, and I'm a partner at Full Funnel, and we're a Clay.com Elite Studio partner. The objective I have today is to talk to you about how to implement Clay.com across your sales and marketing organization so it becomes a systemic piece of your technology stack. Now, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I try to clear up for folks about Clay.com is it is not just for enrichment and for automating some light outbound workflows. Now, that is kind of the way that the email marketing community has used Clay. It's a major part of their growth story, but really Clay is a central, almost nuclear core to a modern sales and marketing program. And I'm going to show you how to implement Clay as that systemic sort of function. First and foremost, we want to make sure that we all understand the reality of what a sales and marketing program is, right? Sales and marketing programs are essentially just actions that happen sequentially over either technology mediums like Salesforce, HubSpot, Outreach, so on and so forth, or through human capital, labor, the folks that you're paying to execute your sales and your marketing programs. Now, when you think of actions as they happen sequentially, that's a workflow. A lot of the workflows that exist in modern B2B organizations are pretty fragmented, broken, and really kind of expensive. And with cost of acquisition targets consistently going up and to the right with kind of no end in sight, organizations are trying to rethink their go-to-market approach, and Clay is like an indispensable tool in your technology stack. And I'm going to show you how right this moment. So when you think about Clay, the actions that happen sequentially are workflows. Workflows that are part of big workflow streams are engines. We use N8N, ChatGPT, Claude, and Clay to essentially build three core functions for Clay.com inside of a data engine, a messaging engine, and a distribution engine for sales and marketing programs. The first is a data engine. At the core of a data engine, you're essentially building a series of tables in Clay and logic that can look at any company or contact and assess, number one, is it an ICP fit? If so, what vertical does it belong to? And then to essentially enrich all the required information and then go through a sales readiness assessment for that particular company, or essentially to figure out how likely it is that that company is going to want to buy from you. So let's go through a Clay table and actually look at this in practice. So you can see here that this is a Clay table that I use myself when I'm selling enterprise staffing. And this is a vertical table that is part of my data engine. Now, all Clay tables are going to have three segments. The first is a source, second is an enrichment, third is a logic sort of function. And when you think about sourcing a Clay table, you can use a static list like I did here. I just pulled the list of the NASDAQ companies right off their website. You can start with a smart list out of HubSpot or Salesforce, or you could import lists from a bunch of data providers, or Clay has their own data repository. Then you have an enrichment side. The enrichment is to get it to a data standard that is acceptable at your organization. For this particular table, I started with a source of all the NASDAQ, and then actually I backfilled all of the information from my Apollo subscription and got to a firmographic data standard that we're all used to seeing. Now, the question is I got 969 companies here, and I'm trying to figure out like which ones I should talk to and what I should say to them. The first thing is we start building our logic. These are our agentic workflows. This is sort of the logic part of a Clay table that usually is used to distill down larger groups or take a contact and process it to figure out their sales readiness score. So you can see here, I'm looking at things like their go-to-market motion. I'm scanning their 10Ks. I'm going to be looking at their tech stack, their Glassdoor reviews. I'm looking at their active job openings, a whole bunch of these sort of signals, both passive and active. And then at the end of the table, I'm going to build a rubric for scoring these accounts. Then I'm able to essentially process all 969 of these companies and get down to the 184 that are highly probable to want to talk to Full Funnel about their enterprise staffing. This is an example of a component of a data engine. Now, when you think about logic like this, well, how do we use logic like this? Well, there's three ways of doing it. The first application you can use is to keep your database clean. So essentially you can run any company through this workflow to identify, is this a company that's still alive? Does it map to a vertical target that you have? Then you enrich to that sort of data standard that you're looking for. Then you can run your logic or signal architecture to assign a sales readiness score. And then you can prioritize or index however you want to do that. Same thing for a contact. There's a whole workflow there to make sure that it's a fit. If it's moved on to a different company, is that company a fit? So on and so forth. And the next way of using this after data is inbound workflows. And this is a huge one. People just miss this. Most inbound programs are predicated on tools like Marketo or HubSpot that rely on kind of rigid workflow architecture to distribute information. You can use a messaging engine, which I'll show you in a moment, to essentially create dynamic engagement content inside of an inbound workflow. It also will remove the need for an MQL designation at all. You do not need to use MQL. Finally, we do not need to use MQLs anymore. As an inbound form is submitted, the data engine is essentially going to look at the company. It's going going to say, hey, does this company exist in the system? No. Okay, great. Does it map to an ICP vertical target? Moves it over to that table. Then it's going to run through the data standard workflow. Then it's going to run through the signal architecture workflow. We know if it's a sales ready account the second it converts. Then outbound, you can kind of all know that where you're looking at a source list, then you boil it down, then you can do your outbound prospecting. All of that can be done with this data engine. It's incredibly powerful workflow technology that really is applicable up and down your sales and marketing function. The next one is a messaging engine. So let's go back to what a messaging engine is. It's essentially building a knowledge repository for AI tools to engage with to create synthetic content. So let's go back to our example here of the enterprise table looking at staffing. And now that I've gotten my hot companies, I've sort of identified the 184 hot companies. Then what I can do is take a table, bring in all my ICP targets. I sell the CROs, CMOs, so on and so forth. And then I run two basic workflows here. Number one, are you currently employed? Number two is what persona do you map to? This kind of goes to that messaging matrix that we've developed, that internal knowledge repository, ties a CEO to an executive, vice president global marketing to a marketing person. And then what that does is sets up the messaging engine process, which here we're using an OpenAI product to do this. Sometimes we use Claude, just kind of depends on what you're looking for. And this is how you build synthetic content. You have examples of connection requests on LinkedIn, email bodies, so on and so forth. All of the email copy is completely synthetic, no tags, nothing. So you can use a messaging engine to interact with different companies or people in an extremely dynamic way for both inbound and outbound workflows. Next up is you have what is effectively the distribution engine. Now remember, distribution, outbound and inbound. For outbound, email, phone, and social, occasionally text. For inbound, you're going to have a variety of different workflow opportunities, but you also have the opportunity to take those distilled lists that we just showed you how to build and use those as custom audience groups for your top, middle, and bottom of the funnel advertising. So the main objective that we have when we look at Clay.com in an organization is use it as the central nuclear core to essentially modernize and workflow automate the sales and marketing process from both the data operations and inbound and outbound workflow perspective. My name is Matt Iavani. I'm a partner at Full Funnel. This is what we do all day, and I really hope that we have the opportunity to work with you sometime in the near future. Thank you.